Depression is not simply sadness or a fleeting feeling of being down. It's a weight that feels immovable, a darkness that clouds every thought, action, and relationship. For those who experience major depressive disorder, MDD, life seems to grind to a halt. They are stuck in a loop where their minds tell them, "I'm not enough. I can't escape this." Or worse, "I don't deserve to feel joy." But what does depression actually look like? Imagine someone who once found joy in simple pleasures, watching a movie, spending time with friends, or enjoying a sunset. Now those activities are empty. They feel drained, and nothing seems to reach that inner core. It's as though the joy has been stolen, the meaning stripped away, and all that remains is an emotional numbness. Relationships suffer because depression isolates. Even in a room full of people, someone with depression may feel alone, misunderstood, disconnected. They might withdraw emotionally from loved ones, unable to find the energy or the will to connect. The causes of depression are complex. For some, it's triggered by a traumatic event. For others, it might be genetic predisposition, a family history of depression shaping their brain chemistry in ways that make joy harder to sustain. Some depression arises from childhood experiences where emotional needs were unmet, leaving a person vulnerable to depression as a response to life's stresses. But why does depression linger in some lives, chronic and unyielding? Some people seem almost drawn to embracing depression, not intentionally, but because it offers something familiar. It functions as a shield, a way to protect themselves from further pain. In depression, they don't have to risk more hurt. In a world of chaos, it provides a grim consistency. They are blind to the idea that they could live without depression because the possibility seems so distant, so out of reach. Depression often goes unnoticed for far too long. It wears the mask of, "I'm just tired," "I've been really busy," or phrases like, "this is just me," and "I'm just like this." These words become shields, hiding the deeper struggle beneath. But behind that mask, the symptoms are there. Lack of motivation, persistent feelings of hopelessness, low energy, difficulty concentrating, sleep disturbances, and sometimes even thoughts of death or suicide. Depression is insidious, quietly weaving itself into the fabric of daily life, making its presence feel like an inherent part of who a person is, rather than something that can be challenged or healed. This brings us to the difference between depression and grief or sadness. Sadness is temporary. It has a reason, a cause, a beginning, and subsides over time, often reaching a natural endpoint. Grief too has a rhythm. It ebbs and flows, finding its way through our hearts over time, often softening with the passage of time. Though grief is heavy, it ultimately allows for moments of peace, acceptance, and even joy. But depression often has no clear cause. It lingers, uninvited, even when life seems fine from the outside. It becomes all-consuming, like a rain cloud that follows a person everywhere they go, raining only on them while the rest of the world basks in sunshine. It's like Linus from Charlie Brown, but instead of always carrying a comforting blanket, he's burdened with a blanket that's suffocating and full of gloom. Or like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, trudging through life with a perpetual gray cloud overhead, unable to see the brighter possibilities that others enjoy. No matter how much the person wants to shake it off, depression clings tightly, blurring the lines between what is real and what the mind distorts. Depression feels as though the light at the end of the tunnel is unreachable, if it exists at all. Unlike sadness or grief, which allow for emotional release, depression stifles that ability, leaving one stuck in a relentless cycle of numbness and hopelessness. While both depression and anxiety can lead to negative thinking, they do so in different ways. Anxiety is more about fear and anticipation of negative outcomes. People with anxiety tend to catastrophize and constantly worry that things will go wrong in the future, even if everything is currently fine. This negative thinking is more active, driven by fear and the need for control over uncertain outcomes. Someone with anxiety might think, "What if everything goes wrong? What if I fail?" and focus on worst-case scenarios, even when those scenarios are unlikely. Depression, on the other hand, often leads to a sense of hopelessness, where the person believes things will always go wrong or fail because they feel powerless to change their circumstances. The negative thinking in depression is more passive, characterized by a belief that nothing will ever improve, often accompanied by feelings of worthlessness or inadequacy. It's rooted in a deep sense of resignation, the thought that things will always be bad and I can't change it. Depression is like a heavy, unmovable fog that tells the person, this is just how life is, and it won't get better. In short, depression fuels a negative outlook rooted in hopelessness and helplessness, while anxiety is driven by fear of what might go wrong in the future. Both can overlap, creating a storm of negative thoughts, and many people experience both conditions together, amplifying these distorted patterns of thinking. So, how do we spot depression? One way is through the acronym SADIFACES. Sadiphases. S. Sleep disturbances. Either too much or too little. A. Appetite changes. Weight gain or loss without explanation. D. Depressed mood. Feeling sad, empty, or hopeless. I. Interest loss. In activities once enjoyed. F. Fatigue. An overwhelming sense of tiredness, even after rest. A. Agitation or slowing down. Feeling restless or sluggish. C. Concentration difficulties. Struggling to focus or make decisions. E. Esteem persistent feelings of worthlessness or guilt. S. Suicidal thoughts. Recurrent thoughts of death or suicide. Let's delve deeper into the roots of depression. There are epigenetic factors at play. Your environment, your life experiences, and even societal pressures shape how your genes express themselves. Those who have faced trauma, neglect, or emotional instability in childhood may carry that weight into adulthood, only for it to manifest as depression later on. Depression has a profound impact on quality of life. It strips away the ability to feel pleasure, to experience moments of joy, and to fully engage in life's moments. Parenting while depressed can be particularly challenging because depression often robs parents of the emotional energy needed to engage with their children fully, leaving both parent and child disconnected. So why is depression such a problem? It's not just the symptoms themselves. It's how it silently erodes a person's life, their relationships, and their sense of self. Depression can convince you that you're undeserving of happiness, or that change is impossible. It creeps into every corner of your existence, quietly dismantling your motivation, your hope, and even your identity. It steals time. Months or even years can slip by in a fog of indifference or pain, where daily life feels like a blur of tasks that no longer hold meaning. And worse, many people try to hide it, putting on a brave face for the world, while deep down, they're drowning in despair. This concealment only intensifies the isolation, making it even harder to reach out for help, as depression tightens its grip on the person's mind and heart. What does depression look like? Picture a parent who, despite wanting to be present with their child, finds themselves emotionally distant, unable to engage, and uninterested in the activities they once cherished. Or imagine a partner who used to communicate openly, but now withdraws into silence, feeling as though words are too heavy to lift. Depression doesn't announce itself with loud alarms. It's sneaky and insidious. It doesn't scream for attention. It's subtle, creeping in like a whisper, slowly pulling its victims into isolation, leaving them feeling disconnected and misunderstood. It saps energy, motivation, and desire until even the simplest tasks feel insurmountable and relationships become strained under the weight of an unspoken struggle. But there is hope. While depression may feel like a trap, it isn't one without an exit. Coping with depression involves breaking through familiar patterns, challenging the thoughts that keep you trapped, and focusing on how patterns in relationships and social roles contribute to and maintain the depression. Practically speaking, start by acknowledging how depression is affecting you. Make small, intentional steps, whether that's reaching out to a trusted friend, moving your body, or practicing mindfulness. Reflect on how depression is not just a personal burden, but one shaped by interpersonal dynamics. Depression affects your connections with others, and vice versa. Negative connections can reinforce depression. Start with small actions, whether it's reconnecting with people, opening up about your struggles, or improving communication with loved ones. It's also important to make practical changes in your social life, rebuild relationships, and one way or another resolve or end interpersonal conflicts that may have contributed to the depression. Reaching out for support can feel daunting, but even a single conversation can start to ease the grip of depression. Depression doesn't just affect the mind, it impacts the body too. Movement, whether it's exercise, a walk in nature, or simple stretching, can be a powerful tool for lifting your mood. The body holds onto emotional stress, and somatic practices such as body movement or breath work can help release tension and reconnect you with a sense of groundedness. Nature itself can be healing. Taking time to be outside, noticing the world around you, and allowing your senses to absorb the natural beauty can shift your mind out of the fog that depression creates. Spending time outdoors in sunlight can also help regulate your mood and sleep patterns. Research has shown that physical activity and nature exposure are linked to improvements in mental health, including reducing symptoms of depression. It doesn't have to be intense exercise. Just moving your body in any way can start to shift your mood. As you address the social and relational aspects of depression, you might also want to focus on self-care. This includes everything from making sure you're getting enough sleep, eating nourishing foods, to making time for activities that bring you a sense of joy, however small. Depression thrives on isolation, so taking steps to engage with life again, even in small ways, helps push back the walls it creates. Depression may tell you that change is impossible, but by slowly strengthening your relationships and taking care of your body, you're building a lifeline out of the fog. Healing from depression is a journey, one that may be long, but it is possible. Sometimes healing begins with realizing that you don't have to go through this alone. Whether it's reconnecting with others or connecting with yourself through movement, mindfulness, meditation, or compassion, each small step matters. Healing isn't a straight path. It's full of ups and downs. It's important to remember that healing takes time, and self-compassion is key. You don't have to fix everything all at once. Sometimes, the most healing step is simply acknowledging where you are in the present moment without judgment. Being kind to yourself along the way, recognizing your efforts, and being patient with your progress are as crucial as any other tool. Depression often makes it hard to see the small victories, but each step forward, no matter how small, counts. As you begin to focus on rebuilding connections, addressing interpersonal conflicts, and making those small, intentional changes in your relationships and routines, you're planting the seeds of recovery. Each step brings you closer to reclaiming your sense of self, and as you continue, the grip of depression begins to loosen. Healing isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Every attempt to reconnect with yourself, to spirituality, or to others is a step toward reclaiming the joy and meaning that depression steals away. Be gentle with yourself and trust that in time, these efforts will lead you back to the light. If trying on your own doesn't work, you might want to consider exploring professional help. Therapy, medication, spiritual mindful practices, and supportive relationships all together are all tools that can bring you back to the light. Remember these words from Viktor Frankl. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves.